Welcome to Paul's Passive House. Well, we're back in the addition, and now it's time to insulate the subfloor. This addition was built on a slab, as you can see, and that slab was leaking radon, which we mitigated in one of the previous episodes. We're going to do some more mitigation in the near future, but for now, as part of the mitigation strategy, and in an effort to make this addition passive, I am going to be insulating it heavily. Some things to note here: take a look at the bottom of the drywall. I've removed 3 inches of drywall from the bottom of the walls, and that's going to leave me enough space to put in the insulation. Now, these are 1-inch thick XPS foam insulation. On top of that, I'm going to put a polyiso foam insulation. And then on top of that, I'm going to put 1-inch zip system R sheathing, which will give it another 1/2 inch of polyiso. When you total that all up, that leaves me with an R12. You'll notice here that I'm taping all the seams. That's because I want all that radon to be under the slab. I want to make sure that I seal this space so radon can't get through. The R value for this room, at least on the floor, is going to be an R11. I would have liked to get more than an R11, but that was about as good as I could get. I only have so much headspace, and I wanted to make sure, because I'm really tall, I wanted to make sure that there was plenty of it after the floor was all installed. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when you're doing a floor like this, where you have insulation and then your subfloor, whether that's OSB or plywood, you're going to have to use a glue down or nail down product. You can't float a floor on top of a subfloor like this, at least not the way I installed it. In order to actually use a floating floor, you would have had to have glued every single one of these layers that you're watching me put down. I'm floating this floor and taping the seams, and so it's going to move around too much for me to use like a vinyl product or a floating floor product. So the final floor, I have an engineered wood floor that's going to go on top of this, is going to have to be glued and nailed to the OSB. If I had to do this over again, I would definitely be gluing down each individual layer. So I'd have a layer of glue between the concrete and this layer of pink XPS foam. Then I'd have another layer of glue between this XPS and the polyiso that goes on top of it, and then yet another layer of glue that goes between the polyiso and the Zip R system sheathing. Now, this is all in hindsight. You can see I've collected quite a cache of insulation. I've got so much of this stuff that it's just piled everywhere. It's in my backyard. You can see a giant blue tarp back there. That's my huge tarp of insulation. It's like 8 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet. It's this giant cube. Now you see here I'm removing the trim. At this point, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep that door or remove that door. So for now, I'm just going to remove the bottom trim of that door, and that'll leave room for the insulation and the OSB. Now, I did a very similar floor in my utility room. You saw that earlier. And I made a mistake. I learned from that mistake. You see, I floated a vinyl plank product over a floor very similar to this one, and it's moving around. It's probably going to be fine for a couple of years, but eventually those vinyl planks, even though they're rigid core and they're very stable and sturdy, eventually they're going to fail. So I'm going to have to take up the vinyl floor in my utility room and replace it with a glue down, nail down wood product, whether that's engineered or more traditional hardwood flooring. Luckily, I scavenge Craigslist daily and have found a very suitable and pleasing replacement for that flooring in the utility room. The flooring I'm going to be using in here is an engineered hardwood. It's a very nice product. It's called Seafoam, which is a strange name for the color. It's a lighter color. It's a pale colored oak, with some taupey colors in it. It's really nice. I like it a lot, and I'm really happy that I found it. And as luck would have it, I also found paint that went with it. Some lady bought paint and then put it in her basement. They painted one wall, and then she told her husband she didn't like it anymore. And so they had 15 gallons of paint that I think I got for about $100. And it looks perfect with the hardwood floor that I picked for this edition. So I just got really lucky. Now, before I measured and put down all of this insulation, I went through the floor with a leveler, an 8-foot leveler, and identified that this floor, while a little bit wavy, did not have so much differentiation that I couldn't lay a floor over top of it. So there was no need to put in any more floor leveler. Now, if some of you are wondering how I plan on securing this floating floor, I'm going to be using concrete screws. I'm going to be drilling holes through the Zip-R system sheathing into the concrete and then securing it with screws. That was my plan from the beginning. Now, there are some problems with securing the floor in this way, and now in hindsight, I'm able to see exactly what they are. The first problem is that each individual screw moves the OSB up and down. So getting it perfectly level or flat is a challenge. Each time you screw it in, sometimes you can make it wavier than it needs to be. Again, this would have not happened. I would not have to worry about this if I had just glued everything down. The other issue that can arise is that the concrete anchors don't always hold. You may end up putting quite a few holes in the zip system sheathing in order to get a screw that actually holds. Now, I was not aware that the concrete screws broke and stripped and weren't really that reliable until after I decided to do it this way. So let that be a lesson to you. While the concrete screws and concrete anchors that you can find in Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever are generally a pretty good product. Most people use them most of the time and they work pretty well. They can strip out quite easily and they can also break quite easily. I've since had to use them for some other projects and noticed that they break much more often than you might expect. Again, if you have the option, and if I could do this over again, I would have glued down each individual layer separately. You can see here, I'm just sort of dry fitting the OSB. I haven't actually decided how I'm gonna lay all this out. And as it would turn out, I ended up putting another layer of insulation on top of this pink, and then the zip system on top of that. So here's the zip system and all of the insulation fully installed. I did it over the course of a couple of days, and it turned out pretty good. It's not perfect, but it'll get the job done. If you'd like a free energy efficiency consultation, please email me at paulspassivehouse@gmail.com.